and as I reflect back on that, it's just such a very short time. It's just such a very short time. And I know for someone like John and Cindy, you're right in the middle of raising a family, and you have several children. It just seems like you're just busy all the time. But I'd encourage you to enjoy these days, enjoy these times, because there is coming a time and a day when these children are going to be gone, and you're like, where did the time go? What was it? How did it go by so fast? And my question to me is, several of my boys are gone from home now. And my question is, did I shape them and mold them and form them in such a way that God is pleased, not with my life, but with their life? Did I shape them and instill in them and make them the person that God needs them to be for their wife and their children? What is being a dad and what is being a mom? What does that consist of? I believe, first of all, number one, this is the number one rule that I use in my life, to teach and train my children in Mark 1:11. Right, mark that down, Mark 1:11, Mark 1:1. It's the very first thing you need to know as a father. And that is when Jesus came up out of the water after being baptized, God said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased." And I don't know that I tell my boys that literally every day, but I try to tell them pretty often that you are my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. And I don't always, once they became adults, I don't always like everything that they do. And I tell them, I don't like what you're doing, but you're still my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased. I love you. And then tell your daughters that you are beautiful. You're beautiful in Jesus from the inside out. Your beauty should come from the inside out. And when they're beautiful on the inside, it puts a glow on their face that's irresistible. Children, more than anything, need to know that they're valued and that they're appreciated. Children need to know that they have value. They need a sense of belonging. And there's no place better to have a sense of belonging than to have a father and a mother in the home together. And the father leads out and the mother assists and supports the husband, and together they come to a decision to raise their children, how to raise their children. Children need a sense of belonging, a safe place. It's crucial to the development of that. And I'll give you a statistic. This has been several years ago, and I don't know what the statistic is now, if it's worse or if it's better. But quite a few years ago, they went to a juvenile delinquent prison. And in that juvenile delinquent prison, or it was actually juveniles charged with crimes, not delinquents. Juveniles charged with crimes. And they were trying to figure out why all these juveniles were in prison. And the overriding thing, 69% of these children, these young people under the age of 18 were in prison. And the overriding thing was there was an absentee father in that home. So fathers, I can't stress enough how important it is for you to be the leader and the man of the home. And mothers, how important it is for you to support and to also lead the home when the father is not there. Fathers need to be a rock-solid person in the home. They need to be a source that your children can draw strength from. They need to be a God-ordained and God-sanctioned person in the home that your children can draw strength from and know that when dad says something, that's the way it is. So dads need to be that, and mothers are there to nurture and to hold. Mamas can a lot easier hear the boys' hearts than what I can. I love my sons, and I talk to them directly and frankly about lots of things, everything. There's nothing that's off limits when we talk to them. But I've noticed that a lot of times when they have something deep going on in their life, they go to mama a lot more than they go to me. Why is that? I believe it's because mama nurtures them and loves them and cares for them deeply for their emotions that I as a dad probably can't so much, even though I love them to pieces. So I cannot emphasize enough that mamas are there to nurture and to grow the children, and dads are there to be rock solid and to be the person that the family knows that they can depend on, that dad is going to take care of them. I cannot emphasize enough that you as a dad and you as a mom are there. You're there to mold and to shape that child, to return him back to God again. You cannot change the child. You cannot change their personality because that's what they were born with. But you can train away bad habits and wrong thinking patterns out of their psyche. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you a couple examples. One person that I know of, he thought his whole life that he was the black sheep. He thought for some reason, I don't know why he thinks this, but he thinks for some reason that the family doesn't like him and things aren't the way they should be. And it literally comes out in his attitudes in life. He has a poor me attitude that I think his father should have nipped in the bud and changed that thinking. And another thing, I know of some children that their mothers just let them eat whatever they wanted to eat, and they became just fat as all get out when they were children. I can think of about 3 of them that I think of. And those children have struggled with weight problems their whole life. So it's up to you as a father and mother to see after your children, to nurture them through physical things and through spiritual things. You know, rude behavior. Teach your children. I met a child here just recently. He impressed me so much. He was 8 years old, and he came up to me, and he looked me in the eyes, and he shook my hand, and he very firmly said what his name was, and he said how old he was and everything. And that's what I've always tried to teach my boys too, is to tell your children, to teach them, to look at, to respect older people than you, to respect them, to stand there and look them in the eyes, give them a firm handshake, and tell them, don't mumble in their beards or just mumble around, but teach your children. You have to literally teach. I mean, think about it. This little baby doesn't know anything. So you literally have to teach them everything that they know. Teach them how to walk even, how to walk properly. I know of a man that I worked with at one time. He had several boys, and those boys literally just grew up. I don't think he ever taught them anything. And his one boy still walks like this. I mean, just ambles and go. Make them stand up straight and walk straight. Put your shoulders back. Teach them how to walk. You know, one of the things I always taught my boys is if you're working for someone else, don't stand around with your hands in your pockets. And don't stand around and yawn. When you yawn, it makes you look lazy. When you're working for someone, teach them that when they're working for someone, they need to bring more value to that person than what they're getting paid. Or otherwise, you're in debt to that person. Think that through. When you're working for someone, you need to bring them more value than what you're getting paid, or otherwise that person is going in debt with you. And also teach your children they don't always need to get top pay when they're young. They don't need to be paid the absolute best that everyone is getting, because after all, they're also by their employer is teaching them he's teaching them a trade, or he's teaching them how to work. Another thing I've always taught my children, and they don't always do this, but I've taught them when you're on a job site or when you're working, don't just stand there. There's always something to do. If nothing else, pick up trash. So teach your children to give value for their services, to give the owner the right to correct and to teach your children to obey and to give value to what they're bringing. Also in Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, this is very important for you as a father or mother to understand, is that the Bible tells you this way, in Deuteronomy 6, 7, teach them that when thou sittest down, when you walk by the way, when you rise up, when you lay down, everywhere and in every place. I think it mentions everything that you can be doing as a human being. Standing, walking, laying down, sitting, however it is, you're supposed to be teaching your children. So also the other thing is teach your children to be creative. Teach them how to be creative and teach them how to make games. Teach them that they don't always need to be on nowadays, which I never grew up with it, but teach them they don't always need to be on a screen time. I think some of it is okay to teach them, but I always tell my children, make sure when they were younger, make sure you're looking at something educational. Look at something educational. You don't always need to be looking at the screen. But if you're younger, and I realize this is not possible, but the most ideal scenario, in my opinion, is to raise your children on a farm or raise your children on some acreage where they can have a creek to play in, where they can go play ball, where they can do all kinds of things with each other, especially if they have some brothers and sisters. One of the things that my boys did is they set up a field goal at the one house we lived in. A lot of the neighbors commented on it that they must play a lot of football because we've got a field goal set up there where they'd kick the ball through after they played, when they were playing football. But a couple of the verses that you should know, and I can maybe post this on the church chat, but these verses are very important for you to know as a parent. First of all, you should know Mark 1:11, which is, "Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I'm well pleased." Also, Deuteronomy 6:7 teaches you to sit down when you walk, when you rise, when you do. Whatever you do, you should be teaching your children. And Psalms 127 and Psalms 128 is the one about where your families sit together, and when you sit down and the father and the mother, they sit there and your children are blessings. They sit around the table like olive plants, and your wife is like a what does it say? I believe a fig tree. So that's something that God wants for you as a family, to be together as a family and to grow up together as a family and to teach each other how to get along with each other. Also, another thing is in Ephesians 6:1-4, that teaches how you should respond to your children in times when you don't agree with each other. And I'll touch on that just a little bit later. Another thing that I strongly encourage you as a father to do is to take your children with you wherever you go. It doesn't matter where you go. If you go see a client, if you go into the feed store, if you go into the grocery store, is take your children along. I knew a man years ago that he would go places, and then I'd go by his place. He lived right beside a main highway, and his son was out there playing in the sandbox. And I told him several times, I said, you know, you need to take your children with you. You need to have a relationship with your children. Take them with you wherever you go. And it seemed like his son learned most of his life skills out of the sandbox instead of with the dad. So when you take your children, you're also teaching them, you're telling them, you're training them. I always took my children with me, especially when I went on sales calls where I met the couple, or met whoever I was trying to sell a building to at the home. It also, if nothing else, it gives you legitimacy to have children with you because it teaches the people that you're meeting that this is a family man. But on the other hand, you also have to teach your children to behave themselves or it doesn't work very good. One other thing that I never allowed, I'm not saying that it didn't happen, but I didn't allow, was my children just fight. Children are going to fight. It's just, I don't know what. I've said already many times, I think there's something, a little black man that stands up inside them and just says, fight, 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 fight. Because they just want to fight for some reason. And I always told them, if you're going to fight and you're going to cry and carry on, I'm going to give you a reason to. I'm going to spank you. And one thing I never could stand is when I'm driving, we're going on a trip, and the children would decide now's a good time to fight because Dad's driving and he can't do anything about it. Well, I had another thing for that. I started telling them, do you want to be spanked before we leave, or should I spank you when you start fighting? And I literally spanked some of them before I left. And believe it or not, it helped. It helped. They didn't fight. And there were times where I just simply stopped the vehicle, got the children out, and spanked them one by one. And then we had a nice trip after that. But it's just, I know children are going to fight. I'm not saying you can completely keep them from fighting, but just to allow children to fight and squabble is not, it wears on a dad and a mom when you let them do that, and it wears on the rest of the family. Another reason I believe that it's so important that that you teach them to work and it gives them value and it gives them a good feeling when they lay down at night and go to sleep. They realize that they've accomplished something. Well, you know how you feel when you really did a good job that day. You lay down, you feel fulfilled, and you feel great about yourself. And that's how children should feel. When you lay down and you're tired and they fall asleep. Another thing, these are just a couple practical things. One thing that I can't, going back to making them work, something that helps, especially for boys, because boys get full of kicks and Cheerios, and you have to somehow get that out of them. There's nothing that gets it out better than a good, hard day of work. Or if they have a chance, go encourage them to play softball or something work some of that energy off. Another thing that I think is very important is that a father, when you come home, and I know more and more we have to go out and work and have a day job versus working on the farm with the children. But when you come home, I encourage you as dads to mom has been with the children all day, and she might be one last frazzle. She might have one nerve left. And if something happens, that nerve could snap. So it's a good idea for you to take the children and just take them and give her a break for a while. Or even just say, here you go, Mama, you go somewhere, get a couple of your friends and go have some coffee or go have some ice cream or something like that. And just take the children and take care of them for the evening. One thing also that I believe is there's no reason to have dirty children. Now, I want to emphasize this. I know that little boys they have a magical attraction to mud puddles, to sticks, to frogs, to puppy dogs, to sticky stuff. I don't mean during the day, but I mean first thing in the morning. I used to meet a man for breakfast sometimes on a Saturday morning, and I'm not kidding you. I think his kids had all the dirt of the whole week on them. I mean, trash around their eyes, their noses were running, their mouth was filthy. And I'm like, couldn't you clean them up a little bit before you met me for breakfast? I mean, I almost couldn't even eat. They were so filthy. And how do you love your children when they're all dirty? It's something to teach your children when they're young. Remember, you have to teach them. Teach them to be clean, and that'll be a lifelong thing that goes with them. The other day I went out to meet a person, and it was so funny talking about little boys. She had a little boy, and it was a cleared area there where she was going to build her building. Then there was a field beside it. But between the field and where the building and the field was a mud puddle about as big as this platform here. And we were over there, standing there talking about how she wanted the building, the way she wanted it laid out and everything. And I happened to look over, and she had brought her 2-year-old son with her. And guess where he was? He was over in that mud puddle. He was just as happy as could be. But that's what I mean. Your children are going to be dirty during the day. But I don't think it's ever a reason that your children go to bed dirty or wake up dirty. Also, child training, as I said earlier, is consistent and constant. You need to consistently and constantly train them. Deuteronomy 6:7, I mentioned that, and also Psalms in 127, verse 5, it says, happy is the man that hath his quiver full of them. And a quiver was 5 children. So if you have a quiver, if you have 5, you have a quiver full. If you have more than 5, you have extra blessings. It says, they shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with the enemies at the gate. So shame is a response from Satan. Your child should never feel shame. God ordained that you discipline your child. So discipline, understand this, discipline takes shame away from a child. Discipline takes a disobedient spirit away from a child. That's the way God cleanses their conscience. If you don't discipline your children, their conscience won't be cleansed. God cleanses children's conscience through discipline. There's no place in the human body where we can carry guilt. No place at all in the human body where I can store up guilt, because guilt will destroy me. Shame is a response from Satan. Adam and Eve, remember, they experienced shame. And shame comes from unfulfilled emotions and needs. And that's what a child has if you never discipline them. They have unfulfilled emotions and needs. And then we try to fill those with our own selves instead of biblical things, instead of godly things. When I say that, and I put it into perspective, is it any wonder that we see all the disobedience in the world around us, and we see all the mental health issues? Because when you don't take care of guilt in your life, it wears on you. It wears on you physically, and it wears on you mentally. And I believe, I had a man tell me this that did a lot of prison work. He said he thinks if people could forgive and if people could be cleansed of their guilt, he said the prisons would be pretty much empty. The mental health would be pretty much empty. Mental health comes from not being clear, not having a clear conscience. A child needs to be disciplined. Proverbs actually counsels us in that, in the just over a little bit from where I read that the text verse, it says that foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, or foolishness is going to be there. That's just part of the child. It's bound in the heart of the child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Then it also says over in chapter 23, verse 13, withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. And I don't know exactly what the Hebrew word is there. I don't believe in beating them. I believe a child needs to be disciplined. But I believe when you discipline them, I always would get down on their level. I mean, how would you feel if somebody bigger than you was disciplining you, like say a 14-foot man was disciplining you as a 6-foot person? He'd tower over you and you'd just, be like, so I always got right down on their level, right down the same height that they were, where I could look in their eyes. And I'd explain to them, this is what I tried to do. I don't know that I always did it. Probably have to ask my children. But I'd explain to them what they did wrong and then how we're going to punish for that wrong. And then we're going to ask God to forgive us and to be sorry. And we're going to be sorry for it. And the way I disciplined my children was normally a dozen whacks took care of it. Maybe 20 at the most. I know what you're trying to do is you're trying to break the child's will, not his spirit. You're trying to break the will, not the spirit. I know of a man one time that bragged to me, and this was back when I only had one child, I was very young. Today, I would give him a tongue lashing. But he told me that his boy, he said he whacked him 100 times. And literally, that boy, whoever knew that kid, can tell you that boy's spirit was broke. He did more than break his will. He broke his spirit. Anytime that you count how many times you whack your child, in my opinion, that's child abuse. And that should never once be named amongst us. So discipline is made, and I always disciplined till I felt like they gave up. There's times when you discipline, when you spank, and they don't give up with spanking. So sometimes what I would do is I would take them in my arms and I'd hold them real tight and wouldn't let them move. And they would fight and carry on and move, and they'd try to wiggle free. And I'd just hold them real tight until they went limp and gave up. Because sometimes you can spank all you want. You could give them 100 whacks. I don't think they'd give up. I believe other forms of discipline are also okay. But I'm going to tell you, you as young parents, be very, very careful, because depending what doctor you get them to and they see a mark on them, they're going to get child services involved. So it's not like it used to be where you could spank them and didn't have to worry about them. One other thing is be aware. You guys don't like to go late, and I don't either. Be aware that there's probably gaps in my wife and I's teaching. So it's very important to have other people, especially a church is a very good place. But it's also good to have other people involved in your children. Older people, you can ask them for advice that have raised children. I know my brother Harl one time, before he had children, he told me that marrying my older brother said that there's times when you have children you just really don't know what to do. Should you discipline or shouldn't you? He's like, that's dumb. He said, you always know what you're going to do. Well, once Harl had children, he figured out there were times you don't know what to do. Faith's father always had a motto down in the basement in their family room. It said, I once had 8 theories and no children. Now I have 8 children, no theories. And that's, if you're a parent, you pretty much know that that's true. In that gap in your children, make sure that you have other Christian people involved in their life, so that if I'm missing something, maybe they can fill. These are my thoughts on child training. I know I don't have the answer, but I know that the answers are in the Bible. A lot of the stuff is just practical sense. When the thing about child training, the thing about your children that burdens me so much, I'm still trying to come to grips that my 3 oldest boys will never live in my house again. That when I start thinking about it too long, I get emotional. Because it just seems like such a short time. It just seemed like just a few years ago, we were all together and they were growing up and we were right in the middle of training children. But you know, the thing that happens, this is the thing you're going to see once your children are older and grown, is you get one shot at your children, one shot. Neil Kaufman, David's brother, I often talked to him about the way he was raising his family because we were the same age. And I just did not approve of the way he did not take care of his children. And I told him often. And today, or here a few years ago, he came to me and said he wishes he would have listened to me when his children were younger. But now they're all gone and he doesn't have a relationship with them. Because you only get one shot. And the thing that'll happen is that when your children are grown, your mistakes are going to be glaringly obvious in your children's lives. And whatever good there is from it, there's nothing you can take credit for because all you can say is, well, that was God and His mercy overlooked my feeble attempts. And all I can say today is that surely the Lord is gracious. In spite of my failures, He brought my children through. One more benefit that you get from raising children that are godly, or two more benefits that you get from them. One benefit that I've experienced is that trying to raise my boys to be good, honest, upright men, they also looked for that type of a woman to be their wife. And I never even thought of this earlier, but I tried to teach them good morals and values. And then they went after wives like that. And today I am the recipient. I feel tremendously blessed. I have 3 of the best daughter-in-laws that a man could ever have. I don't know that anybody has better daughter-in-laws. I'm not aware if they are. But if you raise bitter children, they're going to have bitter wives. If you raise disobedient children or mentally unstable children, they're going to look for that type of a wife also. In spite of my shortcomings and mistakes, the boys have got really good wives. They married the absolute. Like one man told me, he said, Al, when your boys marry, they hit home runs, don't they? I said, God bless America. Yes, they do. One more benefit that you get from raising children that are godly is, and you teach them blessings, and I never thought of this earlier till just recently as I was studying for this message, is that I find myself more and more realizing how little I know, and I actually go to my boys and ask them for advice. And not only do I find advice and good, solid advice from them, the input that I put into them now comes back to bless me. And I think that's just such an awesome way that God works. Because of His goodness and His mercy, I get good advice and good life advice from my sons. They're a lot smarter in a lot of things that I know. One more thing that I want to share with the singles, if you're not married, you have nieces and nephews. My wife has a sister that never married, and my wife has 6 children. If she has a real need, 6 children are going to rise up and bless her and try to fill that need. My wife has a sister that never married, and she has, 55 or 56 nieces and nephews. And if that lady needs anything, she is invested in these nieces and nephews so much that if she ever needs something, a real need, there's going to be 55 or 56, how many nieces and nephews there are, that are going to rise up and fill that need. One last thing I want to leave with you. There are 2 things that God will never, ever give to Satan. Never, ever. God holds them firmly in His hand. And those are the 2 things that I love dearest on earth. And that is the church of Jesus Christ and the children. God will never give those to Satan. They are safe in Jesus. God bless you richly. I'm sorry for going over time, but maybe you can forgive me. Brother John, would you close, please?